Hello and welcome back to Learn Programming with EasyLang. I am the creator of EasyLang, Marshall Burns. You can find me on Twitter at SuperMarshall64. And today we're going to be talking about functions. So I'm going to bring the game plan over here to the right, and on the left I'm going to pull up our main.easy file. So what are functions? Well, if variables, which we talked about in the last video, are essentially just our data, functions are logic that allow us to do things with that data if we so choose. That's the most basic explanation I can really give. That's really it. Okay, so here we have our main function. This is a valid easy program simply because we have declared our main function. We don't even need import standard here. We could just have do main and it's a valid program. But let's say we want to create another function. How do we do that? We just do the same thing we did with main. We use the do keyword and we give it a name, our parentheses and curly braces. Great. Now what? Well, we called it add, so let's add some numbers. So we're going to say temp x, which is going to be type int, equals 0. Temp y, which is type int, is going to equal, well, let's actually make this 10 here, and let's make this one 15. All right, and now temp z int equals whatever x plus y is. And we're going to use our standard module to print out whatever z is. Okay, now we've created a function. This function just adds two numbers, x and y, and the sum of that is z, and we're printing z. So it does two things, add some numbers and prints it. We're going to need to call this function. So to call a function, you just use the function's name and your closing parentheses, open and closing parentheses. So now, go ahead and get rid of these errors here. If we go ahead and do this, we get 25. Easy day. That works. So that's how you declare functions and call them. So next, we'll talk about arguments versus parameters. Well, arguments, let's start with parameters first. Functions can be, when declared, provided parameters. So if we're going to use the same logic for what we just did, we created two variables, x and y, of type int, right? So let's do the same thing here. So x int, y int. These are parameters. This function has parameters. Well, when we call this function later on, we're going to be passing arguments. Arguments are provided at the call site. Parameters are just what we're calling them here at the function's declaration site, or this signature, if you want to call it that. All right, so let's see what we can do here. So we don't need to declare x and y in our function like we did earlier. We can just do temp z equals whatever x plus y is, because they are provided from somewhere else. Somewhere else being the call site, which is here on line 4. So let's provide 10 and 15. And now we're going to also print out z, just so we get an output here. And we get 25 still. So if we change the value here, let's make it 16. Call it again. We get 26. All right, so we've passed these arguments here to our function that expects these parameters. All you need to do is name and type, separated by a comma. Those are the basics of it. Okay, so default value parameters. So let's go back to 15 here. So we're saying that we want to add 10 and 15, and we'd like to see what this sum is. Well, I can, in my function call site or declaration site, I can provide a default value, meaning a value that if nothing else is provided, this is what we work with. So we're going to use y here. So y int, just like a normal variable, equals, and let's call it 100. This parameter now has a default value. So what I can do is now I only have to pass one argument because one of my parameters is already has a value already assigned to it. So 10 will be for X. Y is already 100. So let's see what happens. 110. Now, if I pass, let's say 99, 109. That's because when you pass a value as an argument to a function that has a default value parameter in whichever particular place, whatever you pass at the call site supersedes whatever the default value is. So even though I put 100 here, well, at the call site, I'm saying it's 99. I'm certain I want to pass 99 here. So let's do the work with 10 and 99. Okay. So those are default value parameters. They come in handy sometimes, I would say. Okay, next. We've already actually gone over passing arguments as well. We were passing arguments here on line 4. Mutable versus immutable arguments. So let's actually say each one of these is, let's make this one 5, 10 and 5. Arguments can be mutable or immutable. They are immutable by default. So if I wanted to do something like this within the function, y equals 5. I'm changing whatever the value, let's actually make that 3. So y equals 3. So at the call side, I'm passing x as 10 and y as 5. But in the function, I'm saying no matter what you pass here, dude, I don't care. Y is going to be equal to 3 before we do our addition. Right? Okay. So let's see what happens. We get an error. So parameters are immutable by default. You cannot change the value that once it's been passed. If you say, I'm going to pass 10 and 5, they have to remain that way in the function that you're passing it to. So we can't do that. The same would happen with x. We would get another error. So we can modify that or fix that by making our argument mutable. So we can do this. We can use the ampersand symbol on our parameter here. Now we're saying that y, the value that is passed in for y, can change. So if we want to say y is now equal to 3, we sure can. We get 13. We can do the same with x. So if we want to say x is equal to 7 as opposed to 10, we can sure get that. All right. So we now have talked about all that stuff. Well, we want to do something other than just printing out the value of add. Right? We're printing it out, we're doing the math, and we're calling the function. All it does is add the numbers and prints it out. We want to return the value of z. Return just means essentially we're going to send off this value to be used somewhere else if we so choose. To have a function return something, you need to do two things. The first is to declare a return type in the function signature. To do that in easy, you use this little arrow symbol. So you can do a little dash and then the greater than symbol. And then you have to specify a type. So that could be whatever you want, really, you choose. But for our add function, we're going to use type int. So our function says, okay, I'm taking in some parameters and I'm supposed to return an integer. Well, we're not returning anything yet. To do that, we have to do return, and then whatever value we want to return, so long as it matches the passed or the declared return type, which is int. So in this case, we'll pass z. All right, so we're adding our numbers up and we're returning z. Well, at the function call side, things have to be a little different as well. In easy, you have to handle return types. I'm very big on that kind of stuff. I don't like where languages are like, oh, whatever, you don't have to. What? You know? So here we have to do this, temp and we declare a variable. Let's, for the purposes of this, call it A, or let's call it sum actually, equals whatever add returns. So if I do std.println sum, we'll get 15. So we've returned a value, sum, and we're printing it out. Yeah, there you go. So you can do other things with sum now. So if I had, let's say we want to call this one sum1, and then I do sum2 equals the same thing, add, we call our add function, but we're going to do some different numbers. We're going to do 7 and, I don't know, 9. Now I can do temp total equals sum1 plus sum2. std.println total. Run it. We get 31. Technically, I could keep this going. I could use add again for sum1 and sum2. Actually, let's do that. Let's go ahead and do the add function. Now we can pass sum1 and sum2. There we go. 31. Okay, so we've gone over what functions are. We've gone over the difference between arguments and parameters, default value parameters and easy, passing arguments, which is what we're doing all up here. Immutable versus immutable arguments. Remember, easy's arguments are immutable by default. You have to pass, assign the little ampersand symbol for that variable or that argument to become mutable within the function. You can change its value at some point in that function. And we've also gone over function return types and values very briefly, but we've gone over the basics. So that wraps up functions. Thank you for watching. And next time we'll probably talk about more complex types like arrays, maps, and structs and enums. I think that's what we'll do next time. Thanks for watching. Peace.